what would Charlie be wanting to do right now? And he wouldn't be wallowing in disagreements. He would be thinking, what can unite us? And one of those things he cared so much about uniting us on before his death was, hey guys, one of the problems facing America is this rising tide of Islam.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so what we saw, and I think it's a really important, cultural event, but I think it's a precursor of things that we are probably going to see more of, unfortunately. And that was in Dearborn, Michigan, where you had, let's say, hundreds. I've heard as many as 1,000. I'm not sure on the total numbers. We couldn't verify it. But protesters that came out, they announced that they were going to do this protest on November 10th. And then they said, we're going to do it on November 18th. So they only had like 8 days or so between the announcement and the protest. They went to Dearborn, and there was clashes in the streets yesterday. Apparently there was a J6 prisoner, Jake Lang, who was involved in I think it got more heated as soon as he got involved. But they were just trying to say, hey, listen, this is America. Dearborn is kind of ground zero for, it's probably a terrible expression to use when we're talking about the Islamification of America, but it's ground zero for this mass migration that's happening within the West, largely, especially in the UK. You and Charlie visited the UK, and that was one of your largest observations. But now it's happening in Dearborn. And we've got Mom Donnie as the new mayor in New York. A lot of things are coming together. And then yesterday, Blake, Governor Greg Abbott went on Twitter and said, today I designate the Muslim Brotherhood and Council on America-Islamic Relations, CAIR, as foreign terrorist and transnational criminal organizations. This bans them from buying or acquiring land in Texas and authorizes the Attorney General to sue to shut them down. Big moment.
For sure. And, CAIR, it gets brought up. So it is an Islamic advocacy arm in the United States, but it's long had friction where you inevitably get involved with some shady stuff. And so something that actually was just reported yesterday in the New York Post, the California chapter of CAIR, they were cutting $1,000 checks through something called the Champions of Justice Fund. And what those $1,000 checks were going to, among others, were agitators on U.S. college campuses, the ones who were shutting down entire campuses, harassing other students, taking over buildings as part of their anti-Israel protests, which in early 24, which, we'll be frank, frequently spiraled into just outright violent, anti-Semitic, disruptive behavior. And they were getting funded by CAIR. And that gets at the heart of what we've talked about also with Antifa, which is there are these left-wing nonprofit arms whose purpose is to provide ideological cover and financial support for barely legal or just aggressively illegal behavior by their more rank and file individuals. And you have to break these networks up. You can't just have financial subsidies endlessly going to people who are terrorists, terrorist sympathizers, rioters, disruptors, the people who actually aren't winning at the ballot box. And so they impose what they want through the streets and through the courts rather than ever winning an election.
Yeah, well, I mean, CAIR, for what it's worth, they call themselves a social justice or a civil rights advocacy.
We're a civil rights organization.
Which is, by the way, it's just par for the course. They're going to launder radical Islamic values, ideas, and frankly, people, because they're very in favor of mass migration from Islamic countries to the West. They're going to launder those ideas in left-coded language, right? So they're going to wrap themselves in the ideas and language of the left in order to destabilize the countries. But CAIR has alleged ties to Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, including funding terror-designated groups. They oppose President Trump's travel restrictions and travel bans in Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0, calling it religious-based discrimination. They had the CAIR's executive director Nihad Awad in 2023 expressed joy over the October 7th Hamas attacks on Israel. I was happy to see Palestinians break the siege, was what he said. They promote Sharia-aligned policies and public institutions. So, for example, because we're talking about Texas, look what CAIR has done in Texas. CAIR has advocated for accommodations like halal meals in schools. They've advocated to adjust exam schedules for Islamic holidays, allowing imams to perform marriages.
They do that I think they already do that in New York. I think they get Eid off. That's kind of related to Ramadan.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. So blue districts, you would assume this, but what Governor Abbott has done in Texas. They're going to get sued. CAIR's going to sue them. Other people are going to sue them. But he has done in Texas, it should be codified by the state legislature. This should be as strong of a political foot forward as you could make, right? Because, governors, executive orders from the president, they're all less firm than when you pass them through legislation, right? They're less reliable, stable. But this is the other thing. Look at CAIR has even modified jail procedures to align with Islamic practices. So the CAIR is a group that Charlie used to say this. Islam is incompatible with the West. And you have to take this from a macro to a micro. On the micro level, you are going to meet nice Muslims. OK, that is not the argument that Charlie made. That is not the argument that we will make on the show. You will sometimes, obviously, meet people that are wonderful people of all backgrounds and walks of life. However, on the macro, Islam is not compatible with the West. And we have clips of Charlie saying these things, by the way, if we want to throw to one of Charlie's.
Yeah, let's do one of those before the break. Let's do 190.
The spiritual battle is coming to the West, and the enemies are wokeism or Marxism combining with Islamism to go after what we call the American way of life. And the American way of life is very simple. I want to be able to get married, buy a home, have kids, allow them to ride their bike till the sun goes down, send them to a good school, have a low-crime neighborhood, not to have my kid be taught the lesbian, gay, transgender garbage in their school, while also not having them have to hear the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. That's important. We want the American way of life, which is, by the way, Christendom.
Amen.
I never quite got him to leave the T out of Christendom, but such is life, such is life. But that we'll have more on this. But the Muslim call to prayer, once you start hearing it, it's at 4 a.m. and they play it very loudly because they view that as an assertive play to show we are taking over this place. We are terraforming America to resemble the Middle East.
There's
or an
a lot of
Islamic
videos
country.
of them, telegraphing their next moves.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.